Hello, hello, everybody. Today is October 9th, 2021. Great to be with everybody here. This is another segment of our Meet the Author series, and where I talk about some of the essays that are in this book, my second book, which is available online worldwide, all the various online booksellers. They all have them. Amazon has it, Barnes and Noble, in the UK, South Africa, Australia. They print them in Australia now, Asia, all over, Africa has copies of the book, all the continents. You can get a copy of this book everywhere. There's a print version and an ebook version of this book. My recommendation is you get the print version simply because this is what you'll end up doing in it, highlighting and underlining stuff. Because as I said, it's a collection of 67 essays on all various topics. We're going to talk about angels today, which is one of the topics I talk about in the book. There are several essays out of the 67 essays that I've written in this book, several essays on angels, and we're going to get into that today in our discussion. But, the book covers emotional stuff, happiness, sadness, suffering, forgiveness, the ego, cruelty, self-interest, selfishness. There's a chapter on meditation, and there's a longer chapter on spiritual stuff. Can we manifest things in life? What's about the meaning of life? What's free will mean? Destiny. What happens? How do you fit destiny in with losing a child? The idea, the horrific situation that I help many parents with around the world who've lost children. They've died young, or died at any time, quite frankly. Dualism, the idea of dualism. And then, like I said, we're going to talk about angels today. Those of you who may be seeing this recording later on my YouTube channel, who may not know me, I've had a lot of experiences on the other side. I'll just leave it at that. I've been meditating for 51 years now. I've been teaching meditation for 48 years now. And I've taught thousands of people to meditate around the world over those many decades. Since I've had all these experiences on the other side, etc., I share with people in these classes about my experiences, but I do it not to just tell you about my experiences. I do it to give you insights and perspectives on how to think about experiences on the other side, if you've ever had them or if you've ever heard of people who have had them. And how do we think about these things in the light of common sense and rational thinking? So that's always my approach. And the reason I do that is to help you, my students, think about things more clearly, because if I can help you think more clearly about life, whether it's life on this side on planet Earth, where we all are in physical, biological bodies, or whether it's life on the other side, where we don't have, obviously, physical, biological bodies, but we have an energy body and so forth. If I can help you think more clearly about life wherever you are, in whatever form you're in, then I can possibly help you live life, whether it's on this side or the other side, freer from the conflicting thinking and belief systems that exist both on this side and the other side. And when I say belief systems, I'm not talking about just religious beliefs. I'm talking about all kinds of beliefs, whether they be religious, political, economic beliefs, child rearing beliefs. I mean, there are beliefs about everything. Everybody has their belief systems about stuff. And my experience in life, and I've been around on this planet, 7 decades, is that the more clearly I think about things, the better my life goes. And not only functionally just on a day-to-day basis, but the better it goes in terms of we'll call it my contentment or my happiness or my inner peace yardstick. You know, how much inner peace am I experiencing in life? How content am I in life? How happy? Because I think that's really why we're all here in the universe trying to figure out how to be happier. You know, nobody's ever perfect. Nobody's ever in this utopian perfection, blissful state all the time. That's I don't like that word bliss for that reason. I think it's more of a contentment and an inner peace issue. Can we be more at inner peace with ourselves? That's to me the goal of life. So that's my goal in working with you guys, is to help you think more clearly. So let's talk about this idea of angels and thinking more clearly about this idea of angels. Now, first of all, I want to talk a little bit. That's my contact info for those of you who don't know how to reach me. That's my website, my main website. I have 4 websites, but you can go to the bottom of any page on any website and click around to the other 3 websites. You'll see links to the other 3. But that's my main website there, kelvinchin.org. And you should, subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can connect with me on any of the social media platforms. I use them for my teaching. That's it. I don't get into politics. I don't get into religious stuff. I don't get into, So I use it for my nonprofit work in my teaching work, my social media platforms. But feel free to connect with me. Let's start talking about this. For those of you who've taken my Afterlife series, by the way, some of these slides will be familiar to you. And I've pulled them out of my 6-part Afterlife series that I teach. I have another one starting on November 7th, I believe, Sunday, November 7th. But if you're watching this recording even after November 7th, 2021, just know that I do them about every 4 months. So you can go on that website and you click on the appropriate page and you'll see when I'm starting the next one if you can't make the November 7th one. But it's a 12-week series every other week, every other Sunday, and I cover different topics that you can see and read about on that website. But I've pulled some slides out of this out of the session where I talk about communicating with the other side, just to talk about them, specifically the angel part. So there's several slides that I'm going to pull out from that series and talk about, because the series is so dense with information that I share with people, that even the folks who have taken the class many times will take it many times over and over and over again. But this one, let's talk about this just briefly, very briefly. I'll just give you kind of an overview, because my goal is to kind of cover this material within an hour today with you and then open up for questions and so forth. So I started opening up to the other side. There's an acronym that people use that I learned recently, After Death Communications. I started opening up in 1986. And at first, this is what happened to me, what you see on the screen there. There was archangels and angels came and communicated with me first, at least beings who claimed that they were archangels and angels. You never know, right? Those of you who've had any communications to the other side, or if you've ever gone to a psychic or a medium and so forth, how do you know? Prove it to me that you're an archangel. Prove it to me that you're an angel, right? So I suggest that you use two filters. Two filters. This is always a filter to use, whether it's regards to the afterlife or whether it's regard to life here on planet Earth. Is look at what the evidence is that you're being given. Is it reliable? Does the evidence seem reliable and consistent? And then the second filter I suggest you'll always look through is, does it make sense? Does what's being said to me make sense? So whether it's advice you're getting from angels or archangels or some entity named Charles or Alexander or who knows who are claiming that they were coming through and giving information to me, or whether it's your local dry cleaner here on planet Earth, or your best friend, or your wife, or your husband, or your girlfriend, or your boyfriend, or your kids, or anybody, your doctor, anybody who's giving you advice. Do you blindly follow what they say to you? I hope you don't. Is the evidence reliable? Are you getting heart medication advice from your eye doctor? Is that reliable source of evidence for cardiology, getting it from your eye doctor? I'm not saying your eye doctor might do something silly like that, but that's an obvious example. No, that would not be reliable evidence. The guy has studied about ophthalmology and eyes and so forth, and how to give you an eye test. Maybe knows a little bit about heart health, but that's not his specialty, right? So I suggest that you apply that same filter to everything in life, whether it's on this side or the other side, because what I have seen time and time again over the 50 years that I've been kind of exposed to this, we'll call it more spiritual, new age-ish, used to be called new age, kind of thinking, alternative thinking about life and so forth, is that people just blindly follow whatever they're told. Whatever they're told. Oh, it comes from the other side. It must be reliable. Really? It comes from a doctor. It must be reliable. Really? Okay. Use that same filter, right? It continued for me for a year or 2 years. Physically, I went through physical changes when it was going through me, because those of you who've seen my other talks, which I'm not going to get into, you can go on the YouTube channel and find it, but where I talk about what's it like on the other side, it's different. Energy's different. It's vibrating at a different frequency. So it's right here. We just can't see it, the other side. That vibratory difference in frequency is a real thing. Trust me. And when it first started coming through me, these beings first started communicating through me in 1986, I was just sitting there minding my own business in my condo alone with my dog and my cat. And then all of a sudden, boom, like what? And it was physically not comfortable. I'll just say that to you. It was not physically comfortable for me. And I think now, and I didn't know why at the time, but now I know so much more about this. It's been going on since then. Let's do the math. It's a long time, 30 something years. This has been going on. And so it's very normal for me now. I don't have any physical discomfort like I did in 1986, So I went through an identity crisis then. Was I channeling this stuff? Was it really me? Was I making this up? That I watched too many Star Trek episodes in 1960s, Captain Kirk and Spock and, Dr. McCoy and all those guys on Star Trek. Was I like imagining stuff? I went through that. I questioned things. I don't blindly just follow stuff that happens to me. It's like, a question, like, does this make sense? Right? And it went on like this. I actually did readings for people for a short while, about 6 or 8 months. And I stopped doing it because people were not, they were just coming to me like the answer man. And it's like, no, I don't want to promote this kind of dependence. I promote independence in my students. So I stopped doing that kind of work. Now, if you're a medium and you're watching this, I'm not saying you got to stop doing your work, and I'm not criticizing mediums or psychics out there for doing what they do, but question what they do. There's good psychics and there's bad psychics, and there's people who just make stuff up, and say that they're psychics. So don't just blindly follow whatever somebody tells you who claims to be a medium or a psychic or a tarot card reader or whatever else they may say they are. Question it. Does it make sense? Is it helpful? Well, I stopped because I didn't want to be what I perceived as part of the dependency problem, we'll call it, in spirituality, because some people can get addicted to that, and I didn't want to be part of that, providing that kind of enablement, we'll call it, in psychology, if you know what that means. All right. So let's get into the angel stuff, because that's what we're going to focus on today. the angel aspect of what I was just, the angelic aspect of what I was just talking about with you that opened up. But I just want to give you that quick overview of what happened to me. And it was spontaneous, like I said, completely spontaneous. I didn't study the stuff. I didn't even believe in the stuff. And it just like, boop, opened up, just opened up. Something opened up in me is what happened. And I was opened enough to receive this material, this information and material, we could say, communications that was coming from a different vibratory frequency. Because why? I think because I changed my own vibratory frequency, because I've been meditating. Well, I've been meditating for 16 years at that point. Okay. I'd probably already taught a couple thousand people to meditate by then. That was 1986. All right. So in this book that I was just showing you, my second book here, there are several essays on angels. On page two, if you have a copy of this book already, on page 244, on page 248, on page 256, and I tried to put them together. There may be some other references to angels in other essays, but those three essays in this book are really focused on the idea of angelic communication and so forth. And that's the title of one of the essays. That's the title of the one, as they say there on the slide there on page 256, Online Dating with Angels. I figure that was a good title, because I drew from some of my experience with online dating and applied it in the angelic arena. So I don't need to read that essay for you. You can read it yourself. But I want to extract some ideas from those several essays, and I put them in the form of a discussion with you here, based on my experiences, as I said, communicating with angels for these, 30-something years or whatever. It was much more intense for me communicating with angels in those first, I would say, a couple of few years, 2 or 3 years. 1986 to 87, 88, 1989-ish, around then. So I'm going to cut to the chase again, and we can open up for questions and so forth in a little bit, and cover whatever you guys who are live with me on here now want to cover. And those of you who are not live, you can feel free to shoot me an email via my website. Go to the contact page if you're watching this recording later. You got questions for any of this stuff, feel free to ask me. You can reach out. What I found the intent, well, first let me just say, experientially, what happened was, as I briefly alluded to earlier, these beings who I didn't know what they or who they were started coming through me. And then they self-identified as those various names and groupings that we talked about earlier a few minutes ago. But when Archangel Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, and Raphael came through and were communicating with me in my condo, it was as if my condo was full. I could feel the energy of thousands, many, many thousands of other entities and angelic entities and other beings on the other side who kind of wanted to eavesdrop. That's the only way I could describe it. It was like the peanut gallery. You know that phrase, the peanut gallery? It's like the people way up in the nosebleed seats, at the concert. They want to see what's going on. And they got to have binoculars. They're so far away from the stage, they can't really see the musicians down there or the performers, or, the actors or whoever's down there on the stage. They're so far away. It was like that. It was like, we're thousands of them crammed into my little 1.5 bedroom condo. And whenever the archangels showed up, and I used the phrase archangels, they used the phrase archangels with me. And but I in retrospect, I guess I'm looking at it, or they're looking at it, through the Christian lens of archangels. How that's my understanding. I didn't understand this at the time, but now my understanding is that Archangel Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel. That's a Christian view of the angelic realm through those entities' eyes. So anyway, Michael was mostly Archangel Michael, and probably 80% Michael and Archangel Michael, and then Raphael, Uriel, and Gabriel, split up the rest, maybe a little bit more Gabriel than the others, but they would come through at different times and self-identify. So again, how do I know it's them? Who knows? Does it really matter? To me, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. The energy was very, very, very powerful. That's what I do know. But was it really that person? They're claiming they are. It really doesn't matter to me. What's useful is the information. And it wasn't that the archangels were pushy with me, but it became clear to me that they wanted to sort of recruit me to be, they didn't use that word, that's my word, okay? That's Kelvin Chin using 21st century language. They wanted me to help them promote their thinking, okay? And if you're asked to promote somebody's thinking, which I would never do, Kelvin Chin would never ask any of you to promote my thinking. I want you to promote your thinking. I want to help you promote your own self-thinking about things, figure out your own perspectives and so forth in life. That's what I was trying to say at the beginning of our talk today. That's my goal. So if you ever hear anybody trying to get you to promote their thinking, they're proselytizing their belief system to you. They're trying to sell you, in other words, on their belief system, and they try to recruit you to be a sales agent. Let's just call a spade here, use business terminology. They're trying to recruit you to be a sales agent in their multi-level marketing of their religion. We'll just call it 21st century language. I say that somewhat jokingly, but seriously. I seriously mean, if that's what somebody is doing. So that's not what I do. I'm a teacher. And these angels quickly found that out about me, that, well, it took them a while, but they were trying to persuade me. But that I'm a teacher. I am not a religious preacher. I am not trying to preach my spiritual beliefs about the other side to people. I'm here to share my experiences and perspectives, and you take what works and you shelve the rest. So I always tell my students, put it on a shelf. If it doesn't fit with your belief system or how you're thinking, it doesn't make sense to you, shelve it. Think about it later. And if it still doesn't make sense, it may just sit on the shelf. That's fine with me. But when you find somebody comes along in your life and they say that they're your spiritual coach or your spiritual guide, and they're trying to get you to believe what they believe, they are not a teacher. They're selling you, okay? And that's a red flag. And so I saw these red flags, and there's several of the red flags there from the angelic side. If you hear this kind of stuff, and again, I'm not saying it came from Michael and the archangel, so, but there were other angels who started coming to me when these other angels saw that Michael and Gabriel and Raphael and Uriel were interested in talking with me. Again, assuming that's who they were, but they were very powerful angels, whoever they were. When other angels saw that, then they started glomming on to the conversations and started coming to talk to me and starting to very explicitly recruit me. It was very obvious with some of the other non-archangels that they were trying to recruit me, okay? Because they know that I've had all these experiences for 6,000 years that I'm aware of this lifetime. So they know that I have personal experience and that I've been doing this work for many thousands of years. So they've probably had their eyes on me, and probably wasn't the first communications I've had with some of them. In other words, not just this lifetime is what I'm saying. So those are red flags. Whenever you hear a psychic or a medium or a spiritual teacher here on planet Earth, I'm talking about, you hear them talking about hierarchies on the other side, all these levels. When you die, you go into this level, and then you go to that level. Whoever that spiritual teacher is who's talking has been, whether they are consciously aware of it or not, they've been influenced by what I refer to as these angelic religions. Notice that it's plural. It's not angelic religion singular. It's angelic religions plural on the other side. There are many, many, many different religions on the other side. And I just generally referring to as angelic religions. You may not even think of them necessarily as angelic religions. There's just lots of religions on the other side, because there are lots of different belief systems on the other side. So they're not going to call themselves, some of them will call themselves religions on the other side. Others will say, no, it's not a religion. How many of you say that you're not a religious person, but you're very spiritual and you have spiritual beliefs? Okay. We all do. So we could, in that very broad definition of religions, we could say we all have religion. We all have religious beliefs. We all have our own religion, you could say. So that's what I mean when I say there are many, many beliefs on the other side, but there are groups. So most of us would probably think of a religion more as a group of people rather than one person's beliefs. So, and that I think makes sense. But there are many groups of different beliefs on the other side. So I'm just calling them generally angelic religions. But when you hear psychics, spiritual teachers, people say, oh, you go and there are levels, and then you graduate. Once you become more self-aware, you do the work. They use all these phrases, once you've done the work on yourself, then you graduate to another level. They've been influenced by this idea of hierarchies. There are no hierarchies structurally on the other side, okay? There are zero hierarchies structurally. What do I mean by that, structurally? What I mean by that is, when you hear me use the phrase structurally, it's not inherently part of the structure of after you die, you have to go into this school system of graduation. No. You can choose to go into a system like that, just like on this side, you can choose to go to university. You can choose, well, maybe, some people would question whether it's a choice, but it is a choice. Some people drop out of school, right? Out of elementary school. But certainly it's a choice whether you go to university or not, you go to college or not. It's a choice. And if you choose to go there, there are grades, there are levels, you're freshman, sophomore, junior, whatever, right? There's certain requirements, but that's not structurally part of living on Earth. That's the distinction you need to make when you hear people say this kind of stuff about the other side. It's no different from this side. There's no structure. Earth is not a place of levels where if you live on Earth, you have to go through these levels. No, you could live in the outback somewhere, in Australia. You could live in the jungle somewhere. You could choose to do that. Now, I choose not to do that, but you could choose to do that on Earth, because it's not structurally part of planet Earth that you absolutely have to go to university and then go through all these different levels, right? Same thing on the other side. You see? Does that make sense? It's the same thing on the other side. There are no levels. So when people say, oh, you got to go through these levels, that's just because they choose to, okay? They chose to go through this, what analogously we'll call a university of, they went to Heaven University. We'll make this up. I'm just making something up now. We'll just call it Heaven University. Well, does everybody have to go to university in heaven? No. Some people could decide to just go to the beach on the other side. What levels are there when you're hanging on the beach? There are no levels, okay? So get rid of this idea. You hear, that's a big one. You hear this all the time, people. And it's a very, very highly respected people with millions of followers. You see them on YouTube talking about levels, these spiritual teachers, they don't know what they're talking about, okay? There's no structural levels on the other side, only if you choose to be part of a group that's into levels, okay? This whole notion that Earth is a school, you got to learn here, that's a classic. Why would angels want to promote this? And it's not just angels. I'm just kind of putting it all into the angel category, but it could be old spiritual teachers, old dead spiritual teachers. So in other words, you got a guru, some Indian guru or some Sufi guru. I'm not just picking on the, Indian gurus, but any guru, and, some guru in South America, in the Amazon, some, shaman, doesn't matter. They die. They're on the other side. They've always believed that you should learn lessons from your life experiences. Now they're dead. They're still alive, but they're physically, biologically dead. They're not on Earth anymore. Now they're on the other side. They still have their own beliefs, the same belief systems. Now they're promoting what? They're promoting this idea that Earth is a school. You go there, you got to learn, because that's what I did when I was down there. We were learning and so forth. Well, just because Kelvin Chin chooses to learn while he's on planet Earth, which is true, that's what I choose to do. It doesn't mean that because Kelvin Chin chooses to learn while he's here living on planet Earth, learn from his life experiences, it doesn't mean just because I believe that and I choose to view my life that way, that everybody else on planet Earth does. No, we have choice. I mean, look around you. Just be candid. Just step back, take a deep breath, step back for a second, and think about everybody you've walked past, anybody you've had a conversation with, maybe not even had a conversation with, you just look at them in Costco or Walmart or walking down the street, wherever you live in the world, and ask yourself, does that person appear to be a person who is a strategic thinker? Because you have to be a strategic thinker, a forward thinker, thinking a little bit ahead of the game, to be thinking about life experiences as lessons to learn from. I'd say no. Most people I've run into are not forward thinking that way. Most people I've run into in life, I'll just be candid, are reacting to life. They are opportunistic and they are reacting to life. They got a job, most of the people, and I love them. I'm not saying this in a negative way. I have many friends from high school who I love them. They're friends of mine, and we grew up together. And many of them have just gone from one job to the other based on who they knew and what job they, and so that's a job I got out of high school, and then I went to this job and so forth. They didn't think ahead that this is what I would like my career to be. Some people do, and some of you do, but I say that is a minority of the 8 billion people on planet Earth right now who are forward-thinking people, planners. How many people have a budget? How many of you have a budget? How many of you plan things out so that you're meeting your budget, And I'm not saying that that's the only metric for somebody who's a forward thinker, but I'm just using examples, real life daily examples, to point out to you that it's not the case. Most people are opportunistic, and some of us, myself included, are more opportunistic at other times and more planning at other times in our lives. So none of us is like, oh, I'm always planning, maybe there's one or two people out there like that. But most people, we're all opportunistic at times. So it's not a bad thing, but you got to be at least more forward thinking to be thinking about life lessons. Earth is not a school for everybody. Okay? This whole notion that physical reality is an illusion, this Buddhist idea, Buddhism came out of the Vedic tradition, has its roots in the Vedic tradition, and this idea of illusion and other thinking, this all comes from the other side as well as this side. It's both, it's like a chicken and egg. Who came up with this idea first? Who cares? Who does it matter? No, it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is it a useful idea? No, it's a very harmful idea that life on Earth is illusion and it's really the other side. That's when life begins and all this. That's a terrible message if you ever hear that from anybody. It's a horrific message. It promotes suffering. And there are other essays in this, in my book, that they get into that, this idea of illusion and how it promotes suffering, etc. So again, I already talked about this recruitment and sales agent idea. Just remember that most angels, most beings on the other side are what I call religious apologists. A religious apologist is a simple term that it sounds in English like it's a negative term. It's not a negative term. In fact, people who are preachers who are looking for followers, they would say, yeah, I'm a religious apologist. I am the person who understands what my belief system is, and I promote my belief system. That's what a religious apologist is. But understand that preachers are looking for followers. Yes, they secondarily may be educators, but they are educators about their religious beliefs. They're not educators and teachers about helping you think more clearly, okay? They're not educators in that way, is what I mean, okay? And they're certainly not educators first. They are promoters of their belief systems first, okay? Here's some other ideas, other perspectives to keep in mind when you are assessing. Again, remember, what's my goal in this discussion, in all my discussions with you, is to try to help you clarify your thinking. How can you filter what you're being told by this teacher or that teacher or this angel or that angel or this medium or this psychic? How can you filter it to figure out what's what and what's useful, what's real and what's not real, okay? So again, faith-based. When you hear somebody say, follow what we say, you'll be saved, you'll meet God, it's faith-based, meaning what? Belief-based. That's what I mean when I say faith-based. You just have to have faith. You just have to believe. You have to believe in what I'm saying. You hear somebody say, that's a huge red flag. Fear-based. The Earth is dangerous path. Earth is got a problem. Oh, got climate this and climate that. No, the Earth is going to blow up and there. You hear fear-based messages, big red flag. All right. Here's other red flags here. Irrational, I call it. The irrational red flags. Free will and destiny both exist. Person does not know what they're talking about, okay? I don't care if it's a well-known spiritual leader. I don't care how many degrees they have behind their name. It doesn't matter. I don't care how powerful they claim to be on the other side or here on planet Earth. It doesn't matter. They don't know what they're talking about. You cannot have free will and destiny. They can't exist at the same time. All right. Or another one is you hear people say, well, you can have joint lifetimes going on at the same time in different parts of the earth. They don't know what they're talking about. Okay. These theories that people come up with based on unusual, genuine experiences that are easily explained if you understand the breadth and depth of the possibility of human experience, but they're not, it doesn't mean that you can be in a gajillion places at one time or have a gajillion lifetimes or more than one lifetime going on at the same time. The soul cannot split. The soul, the spirit, the consciousness doesn't split. It can't split off and then do something, No, these are people watching too many sci-fi movies and they're not thinking rationally. Free will and destiny. Free will means personal choice. That means personal choice all the time. And destiny means everything is figured out forever, all the time. There is no personal choice in the way destiny is defined. Destiny means predetermination. You know, lots of essays in here about this. Okay. There's no time on the other side. Yes, there's time on the other side. Those of you, again, watch my other talks on my YouTube channel about time. Yeah, there's time on the other side because time is a measurement of change. The fact that time is experienced subjectively very strangely on the other side does not mean it does not exist. It's just experienced differently. Just like when you're on vacation on this side, on planet Earth, your experience of time is very, very, very different. It flies by on vacation. That doesn't mean that time didn't exist, okay? Time is a measurement of change. Does change exist on the other side? Yes, because individuality exists on the other side. Who else are you communicating with? If you can't communicate with cosmic soup, all right, then there'd be no individuality, all right? But there is individuality on the other side. There's angels, individual angels, there's individuality. Therefore, change exists. If change exists, then you can measure it. And time is simply a measurement of change. The measurement of change on the other side is very strange and different, you could say, from the measurement, how we measure it here and experience it here on Earth. I'll give you that, but it does not mean that time does not exist, all right? We will teach you how to be enlightened. Heaven is a place of perfection. These are all red flags. They make no sense. And again, I get into the idea of enlightenment or perfection and so forth in other essays in this book. When you die, you'll merge into this cosmic, I call it jokingly, but I call it cosmic soup, you know, whether it's God, the absolute, the source, oneness, all of this. These are religious beliefs that people have. And if you have one of these religious beliefs and it works for you, I'm not throwing water on your religious belief, okay? If the fire of that religious belief works for you, great. I'm not saying you have to change your religious belief. I'm just giving you my perspective based on my experience on the other side of whether or not these things match with the reality on the other side or not. Okay. Here are other red flags. You hear wacky Star Trek names. There are groups out there, and those of you who've been steeped in spiritual groups know what I'm talking about. There's a galactic, I can't remember, the Galactic Council, I think, or the Galactic Interplanetary Council or something. It's got some name out there. They come through a bunch of psychics, and so there's a bunch of psychics who are channeling this stuff. It's like, really? Oh God! It's like I think a lot of the beings on the other side have gone, well, planet Earth, there's a lot of gullible people down there, and let's go there. It's like easy pickings. It's like so, you know, they got no filter down there. They're looking for another religion to follow. Let's go be the Galactic Interplanetary Council and go talk to them. We know what's best for you humans. These are all red flags. You know, we can predict the future of Earth. Yeah, we know what's going to happen because we're over here on this side and you can't see what we can see. That may be true to a certain extent, but not really, because everybody has free will, including them on the other side. Keep that in mind. It's not just we here who have free will. Every mind who exists in the universe has free will, personal choice. So they can think whatever they want to think, in other words, okay? And then therefore they can do whatever they want to do. Thinking is the basis of doing, action, right? Sometimes you hear people use the word Yeshua because that's what, you know, in the language of Jesus's time 2,000 years ago. So then the people will use that as some sort of evidence that it's really Jesus talking to you or coming through. This is no guarantee. Just because somebody tells you that their name is Kelvin Chin, does that mean that it's Kelvin Chin talking to you? Just think about that. And yet people are amazingly hoodwinked by this stuff. It just blows my mind. Over the 50 years I've been hearing this story and that story and this story and that story. Question what the intent is of the beings who are communicating with you from the other side. Always ask the utilitarian, pragmatic question there. Does it help me? Is it helpful? Or is it something that seems to make them seem more important? When they're starting to tell me that, yeah, it's really great over here, kind of stinks where you guys live down on Earth. You really got to be learning your lessons, but we can really help you. We can help you really accelerate and really learn your lessons faster if you're communicating with us. Doesn't that start to sound like stuff that's making them more important and maybe more powerful than you are, right? Big, huge red flag. Question that. In my opinion, I run the other way. Okay, so here's just some summary points for you, and we'll open up the questions here. Don't believe just because it comes from the other side. Don't believe that. It just comes from the other side. You don't die and become all of a sudden a genius. You don't just physically I don't have my physical biological body anymore. Oh, I'm a genius. I'm enlightened. I know everything in the universe. No, that's not the way it works. You've been reading too many fairy tales if you think that, okay? That's factually absolutely inaccurate, okay? Those of you who have had any communications with dead loved ones know that. I mean, I don't have to tell you that. It's still your dead loved ones. They may have a different perspective on things, yes, but it doesn't mean that they're omniscient, that they know everything, okay? All right? Other side's full of different belief systems. Got to remember that. And whoever's talking to you from the other side has free will, and they have their own mind, their own soul, their own consciousness and perspective on life, and they're always filtering it through their belief systems. You always need to ask that last question there on the bottom of the screen. Has that being, whether it's on the other side or this side, whether it's your grandmother on this side or your dead grandmother on the other side, has she put her thinking through the same rigor as you? The consistency filter, the idea of not blindly following? Or was your grandmother somebody who was a devout blind follower of religion X, Y, or Z before she died? Do you think that she's going to change when she's on the other side and now she's your spiritual guide communicating with you? Right? And she's an energy light being and you call her an angel? Because some people do that. Because you could define angels very broadly like that, right? Any light being. We're all light beings on the other side. So just because a light being comes to you, that doesn't mean that the light being knows anything more than you do. That just means they don't have a physical biological body anymore. That just means they're on the other side. For all you know, it could have been, it could have been the kid who dropped out of school in second grade, and now he or she is on the other side as a light being giving you advice on, on life. Okay. I'm not saying the kid who dropped out of second grade is not any smart, is any less intelligent than somebody who graduated college, but, it's probably pretty likely, okay, that they don't have as much, inner drive, we'll say, as somebody who's at least graduated high school and maybe even college. I'm just using that as an example. I don't want to pick on people who, dropped out, maybe had to drop out at second grade for family reasons and became a millionaire. But again, is that the measurement of wisdom is the point. We want to be looking at the point of that last point is how wise is that person or being or soul or consciousness or angel or whoever who's communicating information to us. All right. Bottom line here, if you If you hear fear, you smell that, ignore it. Ignore the message, you know, unasked for advice, you know, okay. There you go. Pushy, like I said earlier, you feel pushy, you feel being pushed, walk away. So I said, no, thanks. And now a different cadre means group. A different group of angels hang out with me now. Yeah, they're more independent thinking angels. They're ones who align with I have goal. My personal view is that life is an eternal democracy, just life in general. I'm talking about just not just life here on Earth, but life on the other side and on Earth and wherever you are in the universe, whatever plane you want to talk about. We all have choice. We all have free will to do whatever. That's what I mean. Eternal democracy. There's a democracy. I'm using that term to mean it's more egalitarian than people realize. It's not this hierarchical, you got to get to this level. And, then you're a lieutenant colonel, and then you're a colonel, and then you're general of the universe. No, it's more, everybody's figuring stuff out, including all the beings on the other side. There's a democracy to it. There's no dictator at the top telling everybody, thou shalt do this because I'm telling you to do that. That's my experience anyway. So my point is that I tend to work with students like you who are more open to entertaining those ideas. And I tend to have friends on the other side who still hang out with me regularly now, who have that similar view of the universe as more as what I'm referring to as a more democracy, a more kind of an eternal democracy. Okay? So again, when we get, my suggestion is that, again, this is how I view things when I get information from the other side or from this side. It doesn't really matter if we're talking about from angels or dead people, dead loved ones on the other side, or whether we're talking about it from this side. I listen for agenda. And then I put it through the rational filter, which we talked about earlier at the beginning of today. What's the evidence? How reliable is it? Does it make sense? Is it useful for me? Okay. So again, this, I think, a fundamental strengthening tool is turning within in some form, whether it's through my meditation or through other forms of turning within to strengthen ourselves within, to strengthen our connection with ourselves, to expand our conscious capacity for mental, emotional, and psychic experience on all those levels, to expand our capacity. That's what any turning within process should do. And by doing that, then that strengthens our ability to filter, to think more clearly, and then to take action accordingly that is more in alignment with our personal needs and the needs of others, quite frankly. Okay? So again, bottom line, I think we should treat information from the other side the same as you would treat it from this side, as I've said. Okay? So there we go. Questions, by the way, it is Sunday, November 7th, 2021. But again, like I said, if you're interested in that 6-part series in the future, feel free to go to that website, kelvinchin.org, and you'll see the dates of future sessions if you don't make the November 7th one. Plus, just shoot me an email via the contact page on that website about this, and then I can keep you informed when the future ones will be. Plus, just any questions that come up from any of my talks, feel free to shoot me an email from that website contact page. All right, questions? Anything? Any questions from the folks here? We got live. Anything? Harpo, John, questions? Cy, Christina? John?
Okay, no questions right now. I'm just taking in everything you're saying.
Yeah, that's fine, Cy. John, did you have a question?
No, I can't think of anything particular for now.
Yeah. So again, let me just sum it up by saying this to everybody. I'm not saying to not listen to messages from the other side, double negatives there. Okay. So in other words, we can listen to messages from the other side. There's nothing wrong with listening to messages from the other side, but filter them. That's all I'm saying. Don't blindly follow whatever anybody says from the other side to you, whether it's an angel, whether it's your dead loved one, whether it's anybody. And even your dead loved ones, you got to understand that they could be influenced by communications and conversations they've had with other beings on the other side since they died and started to go down some of these roads that I kind of outlined to you in terms of the huge range of belief systems that exists on the other side. So always filter it yourself, because whether it's coming from a dead loved one who you trust or a dead guru who you trust, maybe it even was your guru when he or she was alive on planet Earth, you're still responsible for yourself, and you need to filter any information from anybody. But if it's useful, then you use it. If it's not useful, you don't. And quite frankly, the source of the information is less important to me than what the information is. And so, whether the information is exactly coming from the source of XYZ, it came from this source. Maybe it didn't. Maybe it's clear that it didn't come from that source. But was that piece of information useful? Was it helpful? Does it promote your life? And does it promote your kind of freeing up of yourself mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, energetically, and so forth, and help propel your life forward in a way that's with fewer barriers and more freedom and more contentment and inner peace? Then great, use it. Okay. It doesn't have to come from a PhD candidate to be useful information, but who cares how many degrees the person has behind their name? Was it useful information? Great. I've got plenty of useful information, but somebody just ran into in an airport terminal, chatting with somebody while I was waiting for a plane or waiting for a train at a train station or something. Just little conversations and so forth. Always filter. I don't care what the source is, people are very much impressed by sources. I'm not so impressed by how many degrees somebody has or who they claim to be. I'm more impressed by what they're saying and is it useful. And I suggest that we look at life, whether it's on this side or the other side, through that same lens. And I think we'll get more useful information and less harmful and constricting and limiting information in our data banks of our consciousness if we take that approach. Okay, so great to be with everybody today, and hope this is helpful. And you know how to reach me if you got any questions, and we'll see you again next time. Okay, take care now.
Thanks, Kel.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Good to see you guys. Take care.
Hey, Kel,
Yeah, Harpo.